want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Men of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Good day, Madman Mafia.
What up, what up, what up? I am Kirk M. Samuels.
And I still am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Men of Masculinity.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Real conversations. Speaking of real conversations, man, I was I couldn't sleep last night, man. I was just, as you could tell, I was just like just scrolling my timeline and all that kind of stuff. I hear they got this new thing now where you can like Bluetooth, it's like a ring and you can Bluetooth it to your phone and you can just scroll with your fingertip. And you don't have to like actually have your phone. You can just prop your phone somewhere and basically it just has a scroll button for your timeline. I need to get one of those maybe.
Nah, we don't need. Last thing we need to do is make scrolling easier. It's already
Well,
too easy.
they did it, whoever they are. I saw a little ad for it. I don't know. I might have to get one of those. But so anyhow, so I was laying there just last night, just doom scrolling my Facebook timeline, and we hadn't figured out what we were going to talk about today anyway.
Right.
And so I saw these little things, and one of them came up, and then the other one came up too, and I forwarded over to you, and then I don't know what you was doing awake at 4 something in the morning, but you
I'm up at
replied back.
3:45 every morning, man. I do my thing. I get up before the birds chirp. You know what I'm saying? I get going.
Man. No way, man. I ain't.
Well, somebody's got to be up to get everybody
that.
else to work. That's what I'd be doing. So, but yeah, no, I liked the second one. The first one was a little too all about the money and stuff. But I definitely like the non-negotiable rules for men.
I think I thought between the two of them, there was like I saw the one and I was looking through and I was like, yeah, okay. And then the other one popped up right afterward. And like I said, I thought like between these two, they were both titled non-negotiable rules for men.
Yeah.
And like I said, I thought between both of them, I was like, yeah, there's some keep the meat, spit out the bones. There's some pretty good info in those that I thought would be worth unpacking.
Yeah, the main thing that I really liked about it, the one was very much, kind of the Andrew Tate, like make your money, get the FU money, and don't worry about, don't listen to nobody else, do your thing. But the second one was more about kind of self-respect. It's like don't chase a woman that's not going to pursue you, and your peace is the most important thing. So never stay where your peace is disturbed. All those different things are I think excellent rules for life that every man should follow.
Yeah, that was the tricky part. The one of them, it seemed more, I'm going to say business.
Yeah.
Or maybe not I don't know. One of them was kind of more, the sculpting of a man kind of thing. I wouldn't go so far as to say red pill, but yeah, I would say kind of like the, go be the man kind of stuff. But like I said, either way, man, I thought between the two of them, man, we could just pick out some and unpack these bad boys. What you think?
Yeah, I think each list had like 10 or 12, and I bet you we could spend a whole segment on just one of each.
I bet you we could. I bet you we could, man. So I think the one of the ones that stood out to me, and again, no particular order. This ain't a ranking of none of them, but a lot of this stuff, and even from the one that was more kind of business centric or whatever you want to call it, and I got both of them here kind of off to the side, but even that one is a lot of stuff that I remember teaching my son when he was growing up, being a young teenage boy. A lot of stuff like that, and stuff like never shake a hand sitting down. Yeah. And along with that, I will say also look the person in the eye when you shake their hand. That kind of stuff to me is is a good man rule to keep.
Yeah, those are the kind of rules that I think have kind of been lost over the years. That used to be just standard practice. Like you shake a man's hand, you look him in the eye, you stand up, you treat a man like a man, you be a gentleman to and you give respect to get respect. And so those are the things I think should definitely come back. A lot. Some like we were talking about our friend Torrance, who runs the was it Master's Apprentice?
Master's Apprentice.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not right. Master's Apprentice, and having to teach these young kids, these young men, how to shake hands, how to look a man in the eye, how to do an interview, how to do things, and you don't realize. I mean, we're old fogies, so we don't realize how out of fashion and how out of style and how little that's used these days. And those little things, that's showing that self-respect by showing respect to another man. You give respect, you get respect, and doing little things like shaking his hand, looking him in the eye, being, standing up, those are little things I think need to come back because, by giving that respect, I think it helps build our own self-respect as well. That you're a man because you can respect that man.
Mhm. Yeah. Another thing that, well, along with that, just the whole idea of respect. I mean, men, we're kind of intrinsically driven off of the term or the idea, fundamentals, or whatever you want to call it, of respect, period. Which I think a lot of women who are in relationships with men would benefit from knowing, that respect is the air that we breathe, and uh, we tend to climatize to the highest altitude in which we can live and function while breathing that air. So when the air gets too thin in respect, we tend to go back down to lower altitudes of life. And I'm not saying lower is in terms of worse or better or worse, but I'm just saying we climatize to the place, we gravitate to the places, we tend to show up at the places where we find respect. I flashes in my mind the idea of Cheers, the old TV show, and it was at a bar, and as soon as you walk in, everybody knows your name, kind of thing. You walk in, Norm, whatever, and that's the kind of places that us as men, tend to gravitate. And so when we can begin to honor that amongst each other, and to lean into that, then we can reinforce that, and we can have that iron sharpen iron in terms of respect. And then, like I said, I mean, for those women that out there listening, we got a lot of women listeners. I mean, just the idea of respect is a huge thing. So on this list, when it talks about shaking somebody, not shaking hands, sitting down, and then, like I said, along with that, shaking somebody, looking in the eyes. That's another thing that, a gentleman really leans into, respecting other people, respecting men.
Yeah, and then that leads right into kind of the flip side or the other side of the coin is never tolerate disrespect. As a man who has self-respect, who respects others, you don't tolerate disrespect. You have boundaries. And I think a lot of men nowadays have unintentionally been taught to allow disrespect. We're taught to be soft or taught to be amenable. We're taught to be feminine, basically. And so we allow that disrespect and we don't draw a line in the sand and say, nope, we're not crossing that line. These are my boundaries. This is, how I keep myself self-respectful, how I keep myself safe, how I keep myself how I want to be. And that means I don't allow disrespect from others. I give respect, I expect respect. And so one of the things I think a lot of us are missing, a lot of especially younger men and nice guys, we all went through our nice guy phase, is that not allowing disrespect, and it's a lack of self-respect. Once you respect yourself, you're much more likely to be like, hey, that's not cool. I'm not gonna accept that disrespect from you. I'm a man, I'll give you respect, you give me respect. And a lot of that has kind of been, I don't know if it's just social media eyes and everybody's behind the screen, so they don't think they think there's no repercussions for disrespect. Maybe that's part of the issue. Maybe it's the feminization of men. I mean, there's probably a whole systemic issue to that. But for the fact that when you are a man and you want respect, you have to have self-respect to draw that line and say, hey, I'm not going to allow that disrespect. That's just not cool.
And along with the idea of respect, in terms of value, especially the older I get, I rank peace right up there with respect. The concept of peace, and one of the things on this list is never stay where your peace is disturbed. And again, we as men aren't really good at that. Sometimes we tend to tolerate these kind of places. We tend to tolerate these kind of spaces longer than we should. We tolerate for sure these kind of relationships longer than we should. I mean, we tolerate disrespect even from from women in the dating world, or just in relationships and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times, and I'm not saying you go be a jerk for the sake of being a jerk, but at some point you do have to get better at drawing lines, at drawing a line, and at setting up boundaries. And like I said, I don't know that men are always great at valuing and establishing boundaries around interpersonal respect and interpersonal peace. I think that if this is not a place where I can experience peace, then I better be earning some money from it, some
Amen to
significant
that.
money, or there better be some other, tangible value that I'm getting from this interaction.
Yeah.
Otherwise, then no, this has to exist outside of my circle at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's something the older I get, the more and more important my peace becomes. And it's interesting because I've had to fight more for my peace and set more boundaries for my peace than I've had for almost any other thing, because people just tend to expect what what they're used to. So if that's drama or fighting or all these different things, and when you value your peace more than anything else, you're just like, here's my boundary. You cross the boundary, peace, I'm out. Like, you obviously don't respect me. You don't respect my peace. You don't respect my, desire to make my peace my priority. And so I'm gonna go somewhere else where I can get peace, which, for me, a lot of times is just on my own. Like I'll chill in my room, I'll chill in my house, in my truck. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's nice. And I've seen so much now where there's this like, oh, he's a wuss, or he's not a man because he's not willing to fight. Like, no, a real man values his peace far more than all that drama and that fighting and all that silliness. So like if he's just
Yeah.
like, oh, you want to drama, I'm out, that might be somebody who values his peace far more than whatever this drama is or this fight is or whatever's going on. So a lot of times, especially as we get older, man, I know for me, my piece is like top notch number one on my list. Like that's what I need. That's what I want. That's what I strive for. So if you want to bring the drama, well, next, my friend, I'm sorry, I got other places to be.
And when you're single, it is the best place to be when you can be happy alone, when you can be happy by yourself, when you can go on a date by yourself, when you can, exist just within a space of peace. And for that matter, you got to be willing to allow people to exit your life when
Yeah.
they don't value the same peace that you value. You gotta allow and honor yourself with the absence of somebody. Sometimes we think the presence of somebody is a blessing. Sometimes the absence of somebody is a blessing to your life. And you got to be willing to let people walk away if that's
Yeah.
what it takes, man, to get that space.
Yeah. And speaking of walking away and having some peace and some space, we're going to take our first break. So we'll be right back. You're listening to us on KLDC or on the internets worldwide. We're the Men of Masculinity. We'll see you in a few.
I tell you what, man, when I started to value people leaving,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's hard because sometimes it's somebody you love,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's somebody you want to love. A lot of times it's somebody you want to
Yeah.
love. A lot of times it's someone that you want to have a relationship. It's someone you should, might be a family member, might be a former spouse. It might be one of your kids, one of your adult kids. I mean, let's just be honest. If they don't want you in their life, then sometimes you gotta honor their blessing. You gotta honor their wishes and desires. And if their life is better without you, then I love you enough to give you what you want, kind of thing. But a lot of times when you honor that space of peace, man, I mean, sometimes that you gotta be willing to let people go.
Yeah, and sometimes it's sad but true, especially for men. Like we're not valued until we're gone or until we take a step back.
Mhm.
So sometimes that's the best way to keep your peace is like, okay, if that's how you want to be, I'll step back and remove
Yeah,
myself from the situation. And then they're like, well, wait, don't
yeah,
go. It's like, well, you don't honor my peace, so I'm gonna be over here until you do. So
yeah,
so
yeah.
let's talk about
I,
what's the next one?
I don't know. We'll
Protect
pick
your
one.
heart, but don't harden your heart. That's a hard one for me.
I like that one. I
All right, you
like
ready?
that one. I just looked at that. Yeah.
Yes, we're
We're back.
back. Welcome
We
back to
are
Madman
back.
Show.
Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High City. Of course, globally. This is a global empire around the world, globally on the interwebs. I'm telling you,
Madman Mafia is
every
global.
podcast platform, holler at your boys on Facebook, YouTube. Don't cost you nothing to hit a like or subscribe. It really is, seriously, it's free.
Yeah.
And it's
It
like less
helps.
than a calorie to hit the daggone button. I mean, for real. I mean, it is literally no skin off your back. Even to subscribe or something like that, man, you can unfollow later and whatever.
So
But
tangent real quick. You just made me think about this. Have you ever had one of those like
what's that?
back scrubby things where like you go to the massage or whatever and they like do the whole peel thing and then like they scrub all that dead skin off so like no skin off your back? I don't know. I just thought about
Yep.
that. It was funny, man. I'm like, I remember maybe I need to get one of those. My back itching and I can get some skin off my back.
Get some skin. Sometimes you got to let go of that dead skin, dude.
Hey
I
man.
mean, which again goes back to all the stuff we're talking about. Some non-negotiable rules for men that popped up on social media, and that's one of those. Sometimes you got to get rid of the dead skin for the new skin to grow in, right? I mean, I got ashy feet right now, man. I mean, I could probably take a cheese grater to my heels right now and get off some of this, get
Yikes.
off some of this dead skin, man, and let the new stuff grow in. And sometimes as men, we gotta allow dead things to go. A lot of us are carrying around dead weight, literally dead weight. I mean, for years and decades, I carried around the dead weight of my dead father. And I carried that weight literally like a sack of potatoes on my shoulders everywhere I went. I happen to have almost the same exact name, same first name, middle initial, last name, and I carried a lot of the generational curses. I carried a lot of the abuses, a lot of the scars, the trauma. I carried all that stuff around, man, and I saw myself through all of that lens of all that dead weight I was carrying, man, and it wasn't until I forgave him.
Yeah.
I'm pausing right there. I mean, it wasn't until I forgave him. That's the first step, which is again, not to me, and it's not on this list, but another non-negotiable rule for men: forgive your father. How about that? Forgive your father, man. I mean, and I will tell you, I probably have as rough a story as probably almost anybody in terms of that, and so you gotta free you. I don't think you can be released to be the greatest man you can be until you forgive your father for
Yeah,
whatever it
that's a
is.
great weight. I mean, that's a huge weight that I think almost every man carries when we talk about the little boy and the inner child, and that being the source of many of our issues. And that, first step starts with a lot of forgiveness. You got to forgive your parents. And then, once you forgive your parents, you got to start forgiving yourself. And then you got to start
That's
really working on
exactly
that
it.
inner child and looking at that shadow side, looking at that inner child and being like, hey, we did the best we could, but now we're older, we're grown, we can do better. But, and that kind of even segues into the topic I wanted to talk about is that, protect your heart, but don't harden your heart. And for a lot of us, because of our fathers, we've hardened our hearts. A lot of us, because of former relationships and heartbreak, we've hardened our hearts. I know for me, that's always a hard one because the way I grew up is very isolated. My parents both worked. I grew up in the 80s, latchkey kid. I put myself on the bus, got myself off the bus, cooked me some eggs or hot dogs over the propane stove, whatever. I was on my own most of the time. And so you get used to that. And then you have a hard time like opening your heart to somebody else. You have a hard time. And then you kind of get this kind of chip on your shoulder. You kind of get that hardening of the heart where you're like, I'm good. I don't need that. And so it becomes hard to open up and to even expand your, emotionability. You just kind of get in that numb state. You get in that middle state where it's like, I'm good, but you're not really happy, but you're not really sad. You're just kind of in that middle zone. And so for a lot of us, men, that is a huge uphill battle because we're taught suck it up, be a man, don't have emotions. And we have a lot of ladies nowadays who will, say we're annoying or will say, don't do that, be a man or don't be silly. We're trying to be silly, trying to be ourselves. And then all of a sudden, oh, I'm annoying. I'm too silly. Okay, well, let me shut that down. I'm not going to do that again. And then we just shut it down. And it's really easy to just shut it down, but we don't realize what the ramifications are long term down the road. And it is hard. It's hard. I mean, the world is rough. Being a man is rough, and it's hard not to harden your heart. But once if you can keep it soft, with your own self-respect by drawing boundaries and keeping those who value you around you and not those who diminish you, then it might be easier for you to open your heart up and soften it a little bit, be a little more emotional. But I get it. It's so much easier just to harden it up and be like, I don't care. I'm done.
Yeah. I had a lot of abandonment issues, and maybe I still do have some abandonment issues from my childhood. And I can look back and recognize the fact that for most of my life, I had hardened my heart to intimacy and to being open, to being close to somebody because I didn't want to be left. I didn't want to be abandoned. I didn't want to be hurt. So I masked that hardening with being, hypersexual, with, being unattachable. I mean, I would have a girlfriend at some point, and would never actually connect, would never actually open up, would never experience any depth in relationship. And so I had a lot of failed relationships over life. And so, but all that comes back to I had hardened that part of my heart because I didn't want to be hurt again. But as men, we should absolutely guard our hearts and not recklessly put ourselves in bad situations. And at the same time, we should not completely isolate ourselves from situations in which there's no emotional or intimate risk. We should have some risk built into life. Sometimes on my timeline, I get and of course, when you watch something, they show you more of them, but I get these videos of guys like climbing on rooftops and, climbing on abandoned skyscrapers or abandoned cranes or whatever, like hanging off, and I'm like, what are these people? Guys are idiots, like standing on the edge of a skyscraper, just waiting for, I mean, I'm like, that is dumb. But at the same time, it's just like people that do skydiving, people that do other things. When you have an element of risk, when you have an element of uncertainty, it brings a sense of life. It brings a sense of fulfillment to some experiences. And so all of this goes back to guarding your heart. I mean, I don't think you should be hanging off of skyscrapers and old radio towers, 2,000 feet in the air just for the fun of it. But at the same time, I understand being able to experience some risk. And maybe for some people, that's going skiing or snowboarding or doing some kind of sport or something like that. But you can't just guard and wall all that off in terms of your heart.
Yeah, I mean, life inherently has risks, but for modern man, for us now to live, in this first world country in the US and the West, our biggest risk is to be emotionally vulnerable, is to look at, to try to soften our heart and not be so shut down. And it's an ongoing process. Like I've done so much therapy, I've done so much inner work, and I'm very self-aware, but then there's still things you don't know about. Like I just recently I didn't realize how much I felt like I was in the way with my father until somebody close to me recently was like, "Oh, I'll just work around you." And that struck me like it hit me to my core. And I was like, "Work around me? Work around me? Oh no, you don't have to work around me no more. I'm done. I'm out. You don't have to worry about that." And it was just real kind of this revelation of like, wow, that was a big trigger. Like, I didn't realize how much I've spent my entire life staying out of people's way, not being in the way, being hyper focused on everybody else so that I'm not in the way and so that I can be out of the way and that I'm not, bothering anybody else and all this stuff. And so it's an ongoing process. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not gonna be like, "Oh, I healed my inner child. I'm good." It's going to be an ongoing thing. And that's going to be the biggest challenge for most of us men nowadays is to be able to open our hearts and to be very protective of that. I mean, you got to think about your heart as like, a newborn baby, like a newborn you got to protect that baby. You got to protect that heart and only give it to those that are worthy. And it's something that is going to be an ongoing process because, I mean, relationships are all about learning. You want to be challenged, you want to learn, you want to become the best version of yourself, get in relationships. That's the fastest way to learn what's holding you up, what's holding you back, what's in your psyche that you're not even aware of. Because I mean, how we react and how we respond to these different stimuli show us who we really are and what's going on underneath, what's going on subconsciously. So I mean, my biggest challenge for you guys, you want a non-negotiable rule for life, challenge yourself to feel, challenge yourself to be vulnerable, challenge yourself to uncover what's running you subconsciously so that you don't have thing running you anymore. Now you can become the master of your own ship. Somebody else is not driving your ships, and some little unconscious part of you is not driving your ship anymore. You are, because you're conscious of those triggers and those things. But it's not fun when you get triggered, man. It's emotional, and it's taxing, and it's not fun. But by being aware of that and moving forward through that, you can actually become more healthy and more open, and have even a bigger and better heart for those around you.
Yeah, non-negotiable rule for men, even buried in what you just said, is, I mean, strive to be better. One of the things right here is always have the ambition to be better. Strive to better yourself. I mean, life should be a continual process of trying to sharpen whatever saw you have. If you got a 53-year-old body, maybe you can't do everything in the gym that somebody else can, but you can do something. What's the best you that you can be, in this moment? I know, several guys that have just recently decided they were gonna, go sober. They were gonna stop drinking or something like that, just for the sake of betterment. Like it wasn't making my life better. So I'm gonna put that to the side for some period of time. Or whatever it is. I mean, financially or what, there's always some place in your life that you can seek to improve or to be better. And so, as we seek the journey, the ever evolving journey of manhood and masculinity until the day we die, we should have some level of ambition, some level of drive to be better cooked into that recipe.
Yeah, I mean, betterment is kind of the whole purpose of life in a way. You're dealt the hand you're given. You got the skills, you got the weaknesses, you got the passions, you got all these different things. You got this whole mix. And for us, it's a matter of how do we consolidate that? How do we use that? How do we turn that into our secret formula, our magic elixir? What is it that makes us better? And of course, just like before I was talking about, it's a lifelong journey. You are going to be in different levels, and so each level requires a different strength and skill set. So that's part of the betterment. That part of the betterment is the flexibility and the willingness to be humble. And I don't mean humble as like humbling myself and being small, but humble as in there's more for me to learn. Realizing that being humble just means there's more for you to learn. If you can adopt that mindset, you're always going to be bettering yourself, because you're always going to be learning. And speaking of learning, it's time for us to learn ourselves a break. So we'll be right back. We're the Mad Men of Masculinity. This is KLDC. See you in a minute.
And for those folks that are new, this is however you want to frame it. We stream the recording of our radio show, or we record the streaming of the of our Facebook and YouTube. And then of course our main man Tanner goes and edits all this stuff, and we go out over the air here in Denver, Colorado area, and we also post on podcasts and all that kind of stuff.
You can even stream that if you go to 1220kldc.com. You can actually hear the radio show. Of course, it's has all these edits, all these breaks taken out. So I guess you just get the meat and spit out the bones. But sometimes these breaks have some of the best stuff.
Sometimes they do have the best stuff. Sure enough.
So what are we doing next?
I don't know, man. Well, I got one.
Got it. All right. Yeah, we're back.
We're back.
Yes, sir.
We are back. Mad Men of Masculinity. We're talking about non-negotiable rules for men. One of the things that I've learned in my over a half century of life, every year, every month that goes by, I feel like I learn it more and more, and it becomes more and more of a value to me. And a non-negotiable rule for men is that we must exist in a circle of other like-minded men. And when I say like-minded, if you're a jerk, don't find another group of jerks to join. I mean, if you're a butthole, if you're a racist, if you're a sexist, if you're a whatever misogynist, don't go find a bigger group to to amplify that noise. Find a group of good men and get yourself involved with a circle of guys, whether it's some kind of small group, whether it's just a friend circle, guys that you do life together, you get together, you do whatever it is. I don't know. You do be men together, you do ministry together, you do camping together, guys trips, whatever you want to call it. But you need a circle of men. It is a if I had to write a non-negotiable list and post it out there, that would be number one. Get a circle of guys to live life with because we can't do it alone.
Yeah, I don't care if you're bowling, if you're playing pool, if you're fishing, if it's a book club. I don't care. If it's a gym group, get guys around you. The biggest issue we have, especially here in the West, is isolated men. Men who get isolated, who have no outlets, who have no way of releasing the tension, have no friends around them, nobody to talk to, and all that stuff just builds up, and builds up until they explode. And we see all these explosions all over the news all the time, which is no fun because they like to sensationalize the negative instead of promoting the positive. And even we saw some documentaries where they're trying to say, men coming together, and men can't be come together unless women can be there to watch. Men can't come together unless women can be there to make sure they're not up to no good. No, you need to be men with men so men can decompress. Ladies, you want your husband to have a group of guys so he can decompress because you don't want him exploding on you. You don't want him exploding on the kids. You don't want him blowing up at work and then losing the mortgage and all the money he pays the bills. Like, he needs to have guys around him so he knows, number one, he's not alone. Number two, that he's dealing with the same thing every other man's dealing with. And number three, if they can get through it, he can get through it. And they probably have some ideas if they've been through it before. And so having guys around you really helps your mental state, will help your physical state, because we as men would like to do physical things. So if you got guys around you, maybe you go out play golf, maybe you go run, maybe you hike, ski, snowboard, whatever. But at least you're getting out doing something with other guys, because we like to do things shoulder to shoulder. And having guys around you will just help you do that.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you, just within this past week, man, just having, just being able to reach out to a guy. I mean, for me anyway, it was like, hey, you wanna go hit a cigar lounge, man, and shoot, me
Sorry,
and Torrance did that last week. And no, you don't, but that I ain't calling you. But
rude.
man, I did that with a buddy last week, and I'm on deck to to do it again with another one this week. And man, I mean, but just being able to sit down and man, we don't try to solve the world's problems, but we just talk about stuff, man. And to your point, men doing stuff shoulder to shoulder. I saw this story. I don't remember if it was on YouTube or what, but I saw this story of a group of guys. I think they were called or they called themselves the Last Man Standing or something like that. And what it was, they decided way long time ago that every Thanksgiving they would get together no matter what. They would get together in person. I think they all went to high school together, something like that. But every Thanksgiving they would get together in person, and they got the name of their group because not only do they keep in touch, but they decided, I guess, at some point they bought like a bottle of really expensive scotch or something like that. And they call the Last Man Standing because at some point they're going to start to dwindle away. They're going to start to die off one at a time. And their agreement is that whoever was the last guy would open that bottle of scotch and toast all the other guys. And we're talking it looked like maybe it was a group of like a dozen guys or something like that. And so, so they all knew where this one bottle was, and they decided whoever was going to be the last man alive at that funeral was going to break, or when that last guy, the next to last guy died, he was going to break open that really old bottle of scotch or something like that and toast all the other guys. But either way, being able to live life in community of guys, man, that is a absolute 100% non-negotiable for me.
Yeah, no, men need other men, and it's just one of those things that is kind of lacking. It was really easy for us in school, in high school, college, the military. You got your dudes around you. You're just stuck there together. You might as well hang out. But then you move on in life. You get a career. You get a family, and now it's just you and the wife. And then you get kids. Now you're busy with the kids. It's really easy to lose those connections and to just kind of get busy. Just life moves on, and then you didn't prioritize those friendships, which is fine. Most of those men do that, but it's really a priority, especially as we get older. We need to make it a priority and a non-negotiable to have some sort of men's group, some sort of connection, some sort of time that you spend with other guys, golfing at the gym, whatever it is, so that you have that time to recharge your masculinity, recharge that testosterone, just to decompress, to be able to talk to somebody who understands, who gets it, because he's a guy too, another guy who's has struggles, and maybe he has some experience he can share with you, and you have some experience you can share with him. But it should be a non-negotiable. And one of the other non-negotiables that I wanted to talk about tonight is honesty. Especially if you got a group of guys around you, you learn how to be honest, and you learn it's not a bad thing. Because so many of us have been trained they've got to be sly and sneaky and a player, and you got to do this to make the sale, you got to do that. That's no way to live. And you want to make your life easier, really be honest. Use honesty as a non-negotiable. Say I don't know if you don't know. You don't. I used to be one of those guys when I was younger, where it's like I had to make up a story because I was so afraid of saying I don't know and looking ignorant. And now it's like it's so freeing. Somebody asks me a question, I'm like, I don't know. They're like, okay, and they move on. Talk about protecting your peace. Like if you don't know something, let them move on to somebody else who might know that. Don't sit there and make up stuff. Don't sit there and waste that guy's time. Have respect for him and yourself, and just be honest. Be honest in your relationships. That's sometimes the hardest one because our ladies are emotional. They get out of pocket, and then they get mad at us for stuff that they heard one way and we said another way. But be honest. You don't just be, that's not what I meant. This is what I meant to say. You heard this, whatever. I mean, there's got to be a way that we can actually promote honesty, especially in our relationships, so they can last longer and be more productive. But for a lot of us, we just kind of take the easy way out, but it's not easy in the long run.
Yeah. When I was growing up, in my family, I was famous in my family for lying, for being able to make up stories. Like everybody in the room knew I was lying and making it all up. But man, I would sit there and tell you the most elaborate story of something that happened. And yeah, I mean, people, the whole family, they just knew I was making it up. But man, I would tell it like it was 100% true, man. And nowadays I'm kind of to the point where my go-to saying, but besides the fact that if I don't know something, I would rather say I don't know than to make something up. And I always say like, hey, I went to public school, man. I just, I don't know. I keep it simple, man. If I don't know something, I don't know. And I'll try my best to find out and get back to you. But for sure, I mean, I'm definitely not gonna make up an answer or just snowball somebody because I don't know what the answer is. I'm definitely not going to make it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think honesty is one of those things, if we are in relationships, if we're trying to grow relationships, if we're trying to have a group of guys around us, I mean, honesty is definitely a non-negotiable. 'Cause, I mean, that's how you grow together. Because all those little lies, all those little stories, they may be funny, but then it chips away at your own self-respect, and it chips away at the respect other men have for you, your family, your partner has for you. And they're like, why you gotta lie? Why you gotta tell a story? Why can't you just be honest? And yeah, I get it. It's not easy to be like when she asks you those questions, or a trap. How do I look in these jeans? Does it make my butt look big? It's like, I don't even want to answer that question. So,
Mhm.
maybe the honest thing is like, I don't want to answer that question because you can be mad no matter what I say. So how about you don't ask me those questions that are trap? Just
Yeah.
saying.
My thing, I'll just say, shoot, I like a juicy butt. So yeah, I mean, it does make your butt look big, and I like it. I wouldn't be with you if your butt was small. That's kind of my answer around these parts anyway. And so, and a pivot here because on this last segment, when we come back in a few minutes, I want to get into some of these that have to do with women.
Yeah.
Um, and so, kind of a tee up for that. One of the non-negotiables rules for men and this for sure goes for women as well. But I wish somebody would have told me when I was younger, from a man, when I was a young man, in terms of relationships, that non-negotiable rule is that relationships are never 50-50.
Mm.
They're never ever 50-50. They are always 100-100. Anybody that expects or thinks that a relationship is 50-50 is doomed for a life of frustration, anxiety, and disappointment, and anger and fear. But relationships are never, never, never 50-50. They're always 100-100, good and bad.
Yeah.
I mean, good and bad.
Yeah. I mean, we sometimes get a misconception of ourselves and we think 100% is everything. But for most of us, we're never 100%. we're almost never 100%. Like sometimes you're 80, sometimes she's 20, sometimes she's 80, you're 20, 70, 30, whatever. Like you bring as much as you got. And that's what partnership is about, is that support. Because we know we don't always have it. You might have that one good day where you got 100% for about half the day, a couple hours, and then it's going to start fading because we only have so much time, so much energy, so much passion to give. It might just be like fireworks, like boom, there's my 100%. I'm done. Okay, good. Thank you. But having a relationship is about bringing all of yourself and being honest, growing together, being vulnerable, doing all those things, because I tell you what, it's much harder. It's much harder to do it without. It's much harder to do it without all those things. So, I mean,
Yeah.
when it comes to relationships, it's always 100, 100, and
Because you're always gonna feel like it is always gonna feel like you're giving more than 50. It's always going to feel like you're doing more than them. I mean, and whether this is business relationships or romantic relationships or just friendship relationships, the feeling, generally speaking, rarely do you feel like, man, I ain't doing nothing, they doing way more than I am. Most of the time you see your effort and your sacrifice first, so your 50% is probably, it's always gonna feel like you going all the way over to their side when really you're not. And so,
Yep.
with whatever those relationships are in your life, man, don't ever expect it, in terms of non-negotiable rules. Don't ever expect it to be 50-50, because it ain't gonna be. It's gonna be 100 no matter what.
Yeah, no, it's 100, 100, and 50% of your 100 is acknowledging what they do. And speaking of acknowledging what they do, we're going to acknowledge ourselves a break. We're the Mad Men of Masculinity. You're listening to us worldwide. And we'll be right back. All right. For those of you watching us online, you can comment. You can become part of the show. Don't be shy. Don't be bashful. If we're talking out our butts, let us know. And
I
if
wonder
you agree, let us
I
know.
wonder what other guys. I wonder what other guys got some kind of non-negotiable rules that they've
Yeah.
learned over the course of life, man, and something maybe
Yeah.
they
Put it in
wish
your
somebody
comments.
would
What are
have
your
told them when they were
non-negotiables? Maybe we
young.
can make that episode out of that.
That'd be dope.
All right.
Yeah,
100,
I got
100. Let's do it. Yep. We're back.
Yeah, Mad Men of Masculinity. We are back. Fourth quarter time. We're going to line up on the
Let's
runway
win
a little
offense.
bit, or at least come in on final approach here in a little bit. We're talking about the non-negotiable rules for men. A couple posts that came across the timeline, and just kind of here unpacking some of these things, and some of the bullets that were on some of these posts, and several of these line items have to do with relationships and women. And then one
Wonder
that
why.
really stands out is never confuse lust with love.
Yes.
Man, I'm telling you. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in my life I confused those two and I got sadly disappointed.
Yeah. Never trust a big button to smile. They said it.
Never, ever,
I heard them
ever.
say
You
it.
never, ever, ever. And I'm gonna say this, and after I say it, I'm gonna come back and put a bow on it.
Okay.
I'm gonna say a non-negotiable rule for men. Uh, and this comes from my experience, a lot of others' experiences. Don't allow sex or sexuality to take over and define your life.
Mm.
Don't allow the idea, the concept, the expression of, don't allow sex to replace anything deep and substantive in your life. And I'll go a step further and say, don't let porn take over your life. This is not a morality thing. I'm talking about the idea of of fully substituting artificial intimacy for deep connection in life. A lot of times when we as men let sexuality drive that, then we open ourselves to be manipulated by culture, manipulated by women, manipulated by anything, that can just use that bait every time to pull us in. And our culture is great at that, manipulating men just through our sexuality. And we always default to the lowest common denominator of who we are when we allow that to control us. I'm not saying don't be a sexual being. I'm not saying don't care about sex. I'm not saying don't pursue that. We're biologically wired for that. I'm talking about having that part of who we are take over who we are. That part of who we are just be the lion that seeks to devour, because we always end up with some artificial form of something that should be more substantive, and we got to elevate above that, where it's going to take somebody, if you're single especially, it's going to take somebody way more than flashing some cleavage or flashing some crack to get your attention. Like they're going to have to bring something other than, and that's where a lot of women in the dating market get, they think just because they can flash a little something or put some needles in their face or make it look pretty up here, that that's all it takes. And then what do you bring to the table? I am the table. No, you're not. I mean, you're a needle. I mean, you're an injection. You're a surgery. You're all those kinds of things. But a lot of times our culture can default us to the lowest common denominator when sexuality controls everything. When we don't expect anything from femininity other than what we can consume. So I would say, again, this is not a morality thing. This has to do with us elevating ourselves to the fact that you're going to have to bring me something more substantive than just the primal instincts that I have in life in order to get my attention.
Yeah, I mean, this is not, not about getting on the soapbox and telling you what you should do or shouldn't do. But as from my experience, as somebody who prioritized sex for the majority of my life, what you're getting is not what you're looking for. Just that physical, you chasing, you're trying to get all the notches in the belt and just have that physical pleasure. But what you're looking for is the intimacy. You're looking for the emotional connection. You're looking for those things that are deep down. And just like when I talked about don't harden your heart, a lot of this stuff tends to harden your heart because you're chasing the physicality, you're chasing the high, you're chasing the dopamine, you're chasing this thing that isn't actually what you're looking for. And then each of those times that hardens your heart a little more because you didn't find what you were looking for. And you're like, oh, I failed again. Oh, I failed again. Then you get to a point where you're old enough and you're like, well, maybe it's just not going to happen for me. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I'm too damaged. Maybe I'm too this or that. But if we can, if we've seen anything, especially nowadays, there's plenty of people later on in the years getting together, getting married, doing all those things. So it's never too late. But it's a matter of shifting your priorities from sex to emotional connection, from sex to intimacy, and
Yeah.
to Kirk's point, not allowing the BBLs and the short skirts to pull you away from your mission. See what she brings to the table. We talked about it on an episode recently. Like, don't have her just interview you, interview her. Make sure that she's a good match for you. Make sure she's not just looking for a dinner date or, trying to get in your pocket or your bank account. There's a lot of ladies out there, that's all they're doing. All they have is the physicality and the makeup and, and the injections and all things. They don't have the heart and soul that a man is looking for. So it's really incumbent upon us, and it's really a key non-negotiable to make sure you're leading with the big head and not the little one.
Yeah, we're being manipulated as men, and one of the things right here is never chase a woman who shows no effort. We're being manipulated in our culture, and this simp culture is like driving me crazy. It drives me freaking nuts, bro. I mean, all a woman has to do is post a picture, and am I pretty? And then you go right to the comments, and you see all these guys. Hey, gorgeous. Hey, you wanna? And it's like, dude. I mean, come on, man. Like that's all she got to do is flash a little something, and all of a sudden, she's the best thing since sliced bread. And then you wonder why we got this, egocentric kind of feminine dating culture where all they got to do is look pretty. And that's because as men, we can be reduced to the lowest common denominator. Like I said, I hate this simp culture, man, where it takes no effort, but for them to post a picture and all of a sudden you in love. I mean, and all of a sudden, she's everything you've ever wanted. And hey, I mean, it just drives me freaking nuts, man. And there's so much femininity out there that's just meant to get our attention and have us default for that. And we as men, man, we got to be the tip of the spear. And if we're the tip of the spear, we got to be sharp. And we can't be sharp, if we're just grinding ourselves on the ground all day long.
Yeah, I mean, it's something. I mean, we can even borrow a playbook from the ladies and just, have them earn it. Don't just give it away. Don't just be like, oh, well, you're hot. Let me just give it away. Because in my own experience, and a lot of our guys we know, and I've seen it so many videos on the internet, A lot of guys are very disappointed where they chase the hot chick who's got all the likes and has all the pictures, and then they meet her in person and it's all surface and no substance. And so you got to be the one now to get, hey, work for it. Like, I'm the prize now. Guys, it's time for us to be the prize. We're the
Yeah.
ones that
We
hold.
set we set the marketplace, right? Don't you think we set the market value?
Yeah, we do. Absolutely.
And for us to set that market value, man, we got to hold the bar higher. Like right now, we have set the bar so low, man, that all they think they got to do is throw some needles in their face and get a surgery or two, and that's it. I mean, we have set the bar so low, man, as men towards women that all they think they got to do is pretty it up a little bit, and so they don't put value on our piece because we don't put value on our piece in terms of holding them to a level of no. If you're not, I'm willing to say no. I don't care how you look. The prettiest one the prettiest one on the dating site has all of the simps in her mailbox, and she thinks she's the best thing out there, even though she's dumb as a bag of rocks and got nothing to offer. But a pretty selfie on social media. So we as men, man, we got to elevate ourselves in terms of what we consider value from femininity.
Yeah, we can borrow another, page from the ladies playbook again. You know how the ladies all go for the top 20%, top 10% of men, and their criteria is 6 foot tall, 6-figure income, six-pack abs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, our criteria, I mean, we might be one to go for, the girl next door, the girl that has substance, the girl that has value. I've gotten to the point now where I still like looking at pretty women. They're like artwork. They put so much work into their face, so much work into the makeup, so much work at the gym. But then now I look a lot of times, I'm like, ah, she's hot. What else is wrong? Like, what's going on? Like, that looks like a lot of work. I'm much more interested now. I think us guys need to prioritize that and make that, the feminine girl next door, the woman with substance who has self-respect, who respects you, who maybe has some traditional values, something like that, something that is about building something together and being a partnership instead of a competition. I see so many of these relationships now and all these things like being a competition. It's all about the competition and getting the bag and who's the better one and who's got the most accolades. It's like that's not how you build a relationship. It's not how you build a future. It's about compromise and connection and coming together. And so,
Yeah.
Guys, we have a lot more power than we've been told, and it's time for us to
Yeah.
use it.
And I go to the gym pretty regularly these days, and when I'm in the gym, sometimes I'll look and man, it's kind of the point now where the women are more in the mirror than the men are. It's like they spend all that time working on that outside, and then sometimes I wonder, are they working on their inside as much as they're working on their outside? Have they forgiven their father? I mean, do they value the things that men value? Do they value all the stuff we've been talking about? These non-negotiable. Do they value peace? Do they value respect? Do they value, us in our social circle? Do they value any of that kind of stuff? If they haven't done any of that work inside of them, then we need to start kind of dialing down on what that value is. Because otherwise, man, yeah, then they just walk around like the ones in the gym, just with crotch all over the place. And there's a whole lot of camels missing toes in the gym, right? I mean, I probably shouldn't have said that on the radio, but sorry.
Well,
But point is, they put their value at such a superficial level because we have allowed them to. And I think us as men, one non-negotiable rule is we got to raise the bar for what we have as far as expectation from the women that we want in our lives.
yeah, we can very much turn these lists around and take our non-negotiables of self-respect, boundaries, peace, honesty, loyalty, growing together, turn that right around on the ladies and say, hey, are you bringing this to the table? Are you bringing this to the relationship? Are you bringing this to me? If you are, let's move forward. If you're not, next. My peace is more valuable than that. Just that one word, peace. Is she bringing peace to your life or is she bringing drama? We have to be the ones. We're the arbiters of the relationship. We're the ones that hold the gatekeepers of that forever. So we should take that power, but use it wisely. Don't just hold that over some lady's head and string them along. But say, hey, you got to bring more to the table than just looking good. There's got to be much more to it.
Yeah. then we can be partners, then we can grow together, then we can have this dynamic that we're supposed to have, then we can open our hearts to each other and not guard our hearts, then we can do all of these things that we're talking about, man. But it starts with us understanding, kind of setting our own benchmark, setting our own values, setting our own rules for the things that are non-negotiable in my life. And once we do that as men, man, we're on the right track.
Yep. So find your non-negotiables, man. Make sure one of those non-negotiables is get you a group of guys, watch some Mad Men of Masculinity, like and subscribe, and come back and see us next time. And until next time, we are out.
Out.